Tornadoes have the strongest winds capable on Earth, and since the beginning of recorded history, they've shown remarkable capabilities. Today, we will be exploring the events that set records and even made us rethink meteorology, starting off on December 10th, 2021, when a storm in Missouri dropped down an extreme EF4 tornado. This tornado immediately began devastating multiple towns and homes as it moved. Every time it seemed to be weakening, it picked back up. For hours, meteorologists were left in awe at the tornado as it crossed into 4 different states, causing almost 100 fatalities and billions in damage. By 11 o'clock p.m., the tornado had hit its 220th mile, making it the longest track tornado in world history. Well, that is until footage surfaced showing the storm behaving strangely around the southeast corner of Missouri. After analyzing the video, it was clear to experts that a new tornado was forming and the old one was dying off. What happened actually isn't that uncommon. You see, near the center of the storm's track, a mesocyclone handoff occurred, where the storm creates a new area of rotation and ditches the previous one. This recycling of the tornado practically split the path that was initially thought in half, and brought it all the way down to its 9th spot, which meant that the previous tornado was the true longest path. So what was it? Well, this super long tornado occurred almost 100 years previously on March 18th, 1925. The name was dubbed the TriState Tornado due to its path through 3 different states. But there's an issue with this record too, as in 1925, weather science was still extremely new, and it's entirely possible this tornado did the same recycling the other one did. If this is the case, it wouldn't be the legitimate record holder. However, we'll never know for sure. But one thing we will know for sure is that it held the deadliest United States tornado ever, due to its extremely long path and its occurrence in a time with very, very little warning. The Tri-State Tornado is considered the deadliest tornado ever recorded, with over 695 deaths. If it really didn't recycle, this tornado would be at the top of the record books, as it was probably both the longest and deadliest twister in recorded history. The thing about one long tornado is that it can only do so much in its path, but in a tornado outbreak, multiple long track tornadoes can occur. But how many tornadoes can actually possibly occur in a single day? Well, to be considered an outbreak, a minimum of 7 tornadoes must occur in 24 hours. So how much do you think the record is? Well, on April 27th, 2011, that question was answered. From the beginning to the end of the day, over 300 tornadoes occurred just in the southern United States. Of these, 4 EF5s touched down and 11 EF4s. This happened in 24 hours, when some full years see 0 EF5 or EF4 tornadoes. And that's not to mention the hundreds of EF3, EF2, and EF1 tornadoes that wreaked havoc. This is crazy, so let's bring it back down a bit and point out some US state records for tornadoes. Starting off with Texas, the most populated state, and also a tornado magnet. Unfortunately, the strongest tornado to ever hit the state was also incredibly terrifying. In 1997, the town of Gerald, Texas would get impacted by an infamous F5 tornado. What made it so violent was the extremely slow crawl the tornado did over a single neighborhood. You see, this tornado didn't move rapidly across a town. In fact, the center of the storm practically went stationary over the area, slowly gouging the subdivision for minutes before finally deciding to leave. While sparing the details, when first responders entered the area, it was difficult to believe a neighborhood was ever there. In fact, the tornado was so strong that first responders couldn't even identify if bodies were human or not. While Gerald was probably one of the worst tornado events we'll ever see, only 2 years later, Texas's neighbor state, Oklahoma, would have another one of possibly the strongest tornadoes ever. This tornado occurred in Bridge Creek in Moore, Oklahoma in 1999, commonly referred to as May 3rd by locals. This tornado was extremely intense. It first began far from populated areas, south of a community called Bridge Creek. In just a couple of seconds, this tornado would expand to over a mile wide, quickly destroying miles and miles of the town. For over an hour, it would continue, slowly approaching the huge metro of Oklahoma City, and at exactly 6:22 p.m., it would enter the metro, slicing through the city of Moore, Oklahoma, and causing devastating damage. The damage caused probably made it one of the worst tornadoes to ever impact the entire state of Oklahoma, which is centered in Tornado Alley, and it kept moving all the way into east parts of Oklahoma City before finally dissipating. Not only was this the strongest strongest tornado officially recorded at over 300 miles per hour of sustained winds, but it was also one of the deadliest Oklahoma tornadoes ever. But coming back to record-breaking states, other tornadoes include the 1998 Kissimmee tornado in Florida, which is the strongest and deadliest to ever hit the state of Florida. In 1983, another tornado occurred in, believe it or not, Los Angeles with an F2 tornado. This was one of the strongest tornadoes to ever hit, and it actually caused a ton of damage considering it hit a very large area. And you know what? Let's spin a wheel. Okay. Ohio. Well, the worst tornado to ever hit Ohio is one of the most interesting, honestly. In 1974, the second worst outbreak unfolded across the Ohio River Valley. One extremely strong tornado sliced through the town of Xenia, Ohio, destroying most of the town. This tornado was actually surveyed by the creator of the EF scale, Ted Fujita, who questioned giving the tornado an F6 rating before deciding no tornado would have damage fathomable enough for the 6th category. Over 30 years later, though, one of the worst tornadoes ever recorded would hit the United States, and the moment it set its record was captured on video.
Lena has a public report of a funnel cloud. Public report meaning that...
Pause. Now, while this looks like just a mere flash on a screen, this is actually the exact second the Joplin tornado would become the costliest tornado on record. This power flash is from the St. John's Regional Hospital. This huge hospital, being one of the largest in the state and nation, was destroyed to the point of structural collapse. In most images of the tornado's aftermath, the ruins of the hospital can be seen towering over the rubble of the town. Before weeks later, it had to be fully demolished. When adding up this with the thousands of homes and businesses decimated to shreds, the Joplin tornado becomes the most expensive and damaging tornado ever. In fact, it could even get awarded for the fastest tornado that became violent, from a wispy, almost invisible cloud to hundreds of yards of width in literally 9 seconds. The thing is, while Joplin was very fast in its wind speed, it actually moved quite slowly compared to most. But while Joplin was more of a slow crawl over the town, other tornadoes can flash across a town in seconds. In fact, the fastest tornado ever recorded in terms of distance over time is pretty complicated, but the answer ends up being crazy. You see, tornadoes are extremely weird. They can be super thin and last barely any time, or they can be huge and last hours. Now, officially, the fastest forward motion of a tornado occurred in Galt, Iowa in 2021. This tornado was actually part of a derecho, or a giant line of wind, which probably contributed to its speed, while only lasting briefly and damaging a few metal buildings. It moved across the ground at over 88 miles per hour. That's really fast. However, there's been claims of faster. In 2024, an expert storm chaser, Skip Talbot, posted on the Storm Track forums about a tornado he and his friends filmed. He said, "The satellite we observed orbiting and being pulled into the Wakefield EF4 on June 16th appeared to be moving at an incredible speed. How fast though? I decided to try and measure its speed." He then goes on to explain how he calculated the speed. My more precise attempt produced a result of just over 90 miles per hour. Now, 90 miles per hour would certainly be a record, and rerunning Skip's calculations actually gives us a similar result of 94.38 miles per hour. There are questions though. First of all, this tornado, as he explained, was a satellite tornado. A satellite tornado comes from the same structure as a main tornado, and it gets accelerated into it. Now, there are debates on if a satellite tornado is really its own independent vortex, and if it's not, this wouldn't exactly count. There are also issues in the reliability of Skip's calculations. You see, just a couple feet of difference could throw the final number way off. An even more acclaimed storm chaser, Hank Shima, or Pecco's Hank, posted a video presenting Skip's calculations. Both experts go into extreme detail and come to the conclusion that its speed probably peaked at 94.6 miles per hour, a speed that would top any other tornado speed by far. All of these are crazy, and while the fastest moving tornado is probably up for debate, one record that has no debate is the largest tornado ever. In 2013, a huge 15% risk of tornadoes was forecasted around the state of Oklahoma, and at exactly 6:03 p.m. in this spot, the monstrous tornado would touch the earth. It first began as an unstable flurry of intense vortices, but quickly the tornado expanded. The unusual movement and expansion caught hundreds of professionals off guard, including teams from the Weather Channel and also the legendary Twist X team. At roughly 6:30, the tornado underwent an abrupt expansion expansion, growing to a width of 2.6 miles in a mere 30 seconds, while spanning almost 3 miles and killing multiple people. It luckily didn't hit any well-populated areas, and it actually dispersed right before crossing a highway towards El Reno, Texas. Even by just hitting open fields though, this tornado secured itself as an extremely violent tornado, possibly being the second strongest tornado ever recorded, and its width secured it, as well as the previous tornadoes talked about as some of the most intense tornado world records. Thank you for watching.